I'm Andrew Keene. I'm the Antichrist of Silicon Valley. The Cult of the Amateur is a book which explodes the idea that the internet enables anyone to become a professional creative artist. It argues that whilst the internet enables everyone to express themselves on the internet, there's no doubt about that, the cultural consequences, the economic consequences are dire. It undermines professional media and doesn't replace it with anything really. It's like Twitter. Millions of messages every minute, some which are legitimate, some which are interesting, the majority which are narcissistic, and no one knows what to believe. No one knows what's happening in the world. The old media world, which was controlled from above, the industrial media ecosystem, was very good at informing citizens about what was happening in the world. The democratized media of the internet doesn't do that. It creates chaos. It gives all of us a platform to express ourselves. It's great for that, and it's very exciting, and I do it as much as anyone else. But for the consumer of information, for the consumer of news, they leave this media more confused than when they started. The internet is as much a cause as a consequence of the cult of the amateur. It's rooted in our, I think, cultural pessimism about professionalism, our suspicion of a traditional 20th century meritocracy, the idea that somehow traditional organizations, whether they're in politics or in media or in industry, are suspect. So it's not surprising that the cult of the amateur has been focused against professional journalists. But you can find the same thing in our hostility towards politicians, bureaucrats, doctors, lawyers, all the dominant professional groups of the 20th century. What we're seeing in the 21st century, the first great rebellion of the 21st century, is a revolt against the traditional authority of an industrial meritocracy. It's not clear what's going to replace it. I, for the most part, believe in that meritocracy. I think it was a relatively open system in places like Sweden and Northern Europe. It allowed people, whatever their economic background, access to power and wealth. I don't see the digital revolution replacing that. There is something in capitalism which lends itself towards us wanting to express ourselves. In our post-industrial age, because of atomization, loneliness, because of the breakup of community, the way to somehow reify or deify ourselves is through the creative act. You go out there into the world, everyone thinks they have a novel in them, everyone thinks they can make a movie, everyone thinks that they can write a song. That's why so many kids go into bands, that's why everyone sits down and tries to write a great book, that's why everyone now is buying camcorders and throwing their stuff up on YouTube. Can't blame technology for that, it's not the internet's fault. But what the internet does, surprise, surprise, and not uncoincidentally, is provide a platform for that. No one's paying for this content anymore, partly because a lot of people on the internet are pirating it, partly because of this ethos of amateurism, this cult of the amateur now that exists culturally. It means that professional artists are struggling to make a living. They're lost in the chaos. The Hollywood mogul Barry Diller put it most accurately. He said, look, every generation has a small group of people who are talented. That's a reality. It's an unfortunate reality. It's a reality that many people don't like because most people don't have talent. But in a world where everyone becomes a creative artist, where everyone is a blogger, where everyone puts their video up on YouTube, most of the stuff is garbage, and the small amount of talent which exists in every generation gets lost because you're losing the middleman. And the value of the middleman in mainstream media was finding that talent. So the problem is when you disintermediate, which is one of the sexy words of the internet evangelists, you're actually doing away with the value of the economy. You can't just pick up a camcorder and suddenly say, oh, I can make a movie. You become a master of your art, whether it's in writing or in filmmaking or in music making, requires intense practice. It's not something that can be achieved simply through technology. So it's great that the internet allows filmmakers to put their content on and distribute it around the world. But that doesn't mean that the content by definition has value. Mainly garbage. When you look at the most popular stuff on YouTube, it's 30-second videos of farting dogs or of silly cats. If you think that's valuable, then you're a Philistine. What would a young Fassbender, a young Herzog, a young Hitchcock, a young Scorsese think? They wouldn't make it in this business. Slap up their early stuff on Facebook, on YouTube, it would get lost. It would get lost in the ocean of garbage. So for a serious young filmmaker, these are very, very depressing times. When you leave everything to the crowd, when everything becomes democratized, where everything is determined by number of clicks, you're by definition undermining the seriousness of the artistic endeavor. But what's good about ordinary people getting the possibility to express themselves? We could go out and get the masses and ask them their opinion about the meaning of life, about religion, about the sea, and it would be worthless. Now, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to talk. They can go down to the pub. They can sit over their breakfast table and express what they think about today's news, about the weather, about their cat or their dog. I just don't want to hear it. It's garbage. It's worthless. It's got nothing to do with generational issues. I love anything that's outrageous. The problem with so much of this democratized culture is it's so soft, so ordinary, so lacking in innovation, so unshocking. A video of a cat could never shock me unless someone ate it alive, and I don't think anyone has even put anything like that on the internet. So the democratic ethos of the internet is of ordinariness, of boredom, of garbage, of shit. How do I feel about the concepts of the audience becoming the artist? I laugh at it. What am I supposed to think about it? It's absurd. I like the idea of interactive art as long as it's controlled from above, as long as the artist knows what they're doing, as long as there is a clear separation between the artist and the audience. When you fall into the trap of confusing the artist and the audience, when you believe that the audience knows more than the artist, is more authoritative, is more creative, is more talented, then art ends. Then you have something else. You have cacophony. You have simply an apology for radical democratization. And it's wrong to confuse democratization in cultural or political terms with the creation of art, which is, by definition, for better or worse, an elitist business. The crowd is a bad author. The crowd has never created a great song. The crowd has never written a symphony. The crowd has never made a movie. All crowd-centric art is garbage. The closest thing to good quality crowd-generated content is Wikipedia, which has some potential, but is mostly poorly written, disorganized, and less reliable. But most importantly, it's poorly written. When you read Wikipedia, it always feels as if it's written by an 11-year-old, which it probably is. And when the crowd writes anything, it's lacking any style, any purpose, any verve, any energy. You know, it's all very well if you read Derrida or Foucault in theory, but in practice, what does it mean? It just means chaos. Doesn't have any value. It doesn't work in practice. There are no examples of this collapse of author and audience into something of value. One video game guy said to me that I can't say, he doesn't sell his stuff, he gives it out for free online. I said, how'd you pay for it? He's got 2 kids. How'd you support yourself? And he has the support of a wealthy patron. So I certainly prefer the industrial economy where the artists can sell their work than a system based on patrimony, where the only way in which you can actually pay your bills and be creative is get the support of wealthy individuals. But I fear we'll go back to that if we undermine the economic exchange value of the cultural economy. Well, the short-term future is that more and more content is going to go online for free. For better or worse, that's the reality, because Pandora's box now has been opened and no one's willing to pay for online content. It means that pre-existing brands, writers, filmmakers, musicians will earn a living by giving their stuff away for free and earning money on the back end through live acts, through concerts. That's fine for bands like Radiohead who have pre-existing brands. What the real question is in the future, how will creative artists of the digital epoch, how will they build brands when they can't sell their stuff online? So it becomes a catch-22. You can only become a popular brand if you've sold your stuff, but if you can't sell your stuff, how do you become a popular brand? Now, for some creative artists, I'm not sure the internet revolution makes any difference. For the physical arts, if you're in ballet, if you're in work which can't really be produced in digital form, it doesn't really matter. If you're a painter, I'm not sure if it has any impact at all. But for work which, for the old creative arts where the value was the copy, whether you were selling the book or the movie or the song or the article, the core of your livelihood, the center of your economic world has been undermined because the copy, through the digital revolution, has lost value. It's become free. Content loses its scarcity value. It becomes worth zero in economic terms. You have new scarcities, and the real scarcity is of attention and of physical access to the creative artist. So the real business opportunities for cultural entrepreneurs is figuring out how to solve the problem of attention for the entrepreneur, for the consumer, whilst at the same time maintaining the value of the creative work. If you can figure out a business model, I'm all in favor of it. I don't have a problem with using the internet to distribute one's content. But again, there are very few examples of how this works. So we've destroyed the old world, but we still don't know what is going to replace it. We still don't even know if anything will replace it. It's quite conceivable that we will see the end of a cultural economy. It may be a period of cultural catastrophe, maybe a new dark age. There's very little evidence that it's the richness and the vitality that some people believe. Yeah, there's no evidence that we're on the verge of a great new glittering cultural age. If there's any evidence, as I've argued in my book and in everything else I say, we may well be on the verge of a new dark age in cultural terms, a new collapse of Constantinople, where the creative world is destroyed, and where all we have is cacophony and self-opinion, where we have a crisis of democratized culture.